Okay. So, I will start from square one because in all likelihood, either you do not know what I will say about square one, or you're messing it up in your games, which is completely understandable. Chess is very hard. Let's preface this. If anyone around doesn't play chess, withhold judgment and or comments until you play chess. Okay? It's very complex. It's very difficult. I'm going to start from the start. Okay? I'm going to stop eating so that I can talk. We're going to go to the analysis board. Lichess has a very good analysis board. It's better than chess.com's. I've talked about it before. The only reason I ever use chess.com, period, um, is that I like the multiple pre-move feature. I'm just snacking you, so no worries. I'm not that hungry. That's literally the only reason. Okay, so I have an analysis board up here. You can see over here, this is the opening explorer. That's really good. But yeah, definitely use so. I would say never pre-move for you. Until you're like 1,000 elo, there's literally no reason to pre-move, especially in rapid. Especially in rapid, there's no reason to. Just don't. Don't pre-move. Don't try to do any sacrifices or anything like that. Like literally just play solid. Just play solid chess. Don't hang anything and take advantage of your opponent's blunders. Literally. And that I mean those rules apply everywhere obviously. Excuse me. Everywhere obviously, but even if that's your main focus, that can get you to like almost 2,000. Like don't need any opening prep, nothing like that. So, thank you. Okay. So, we just started a chess game. All right. What our objectives to begin the game are to put pawns in the center of the board. Um, well, okay. There's one goal that encompasses two different things, or maybe more than two. The goal is to control the center of the board. Okay, that's our goal. It's to control the center of the board. So the first way that we're gonna do that doesn't have to be the first, but it can be. It's one of the first ways, is by putting pawns in the center. Okay. Um, and I'll recommend d4 is fine, but I play e4, so I will recommend that as that is what I can help the most with. Okay. So I'll play e4. Okay, and as black, by the way, I'm going to recommend you always play e5 against e4. Good. This song sounds like somebody's knocking and it's driving me crazy. I was losing my mind slowly listening to that song. Um, so we're going to play e4. Okay. So our goals are control the center with our pawns and with our minor pieces. Okay. So bishops and knights are called minor pieces. It's another thing that maybe is not all that commonly known when you're starting out. These are called your minor pieces, and the rooks and the queen are called major pieces. Okay. And when I say the word piece, if I say I hung a piece, I do not mean pawns. Pawns are pieces on the chessboard, yes, but when I say piece, I mean these guys. Always. And so I have an emote for that. um, when I say a piece, I mean these guys. And So sometimes, oh, and let's also go over, I suppose, minor pieces are worth, whoops, th 3 pawns. Okay, that's when you see the evaluation, that like Stockfish gives, for example. You see that number? That number is in terms of pawns. So if it says +1, that means white has an advantage equal to the value of 1 pawn. Okay. Minor pieces are worth 3 pawns. Rooks are worth 5 pawns. And the queen is worth 9 pawns. Okay, and pawns are hopefully obviously worth 1 pawn. Okay, so if you're in a situation where you have to choose whether you lose one piece or another, the queen is the last piece that you'll want to lose, followed by rooks, and then minor pieces are like, the least valuable out of anything on your back rank. Okay. And maybe not as important, but while I'm on the topic, if you, for example, it comes where you want to you trade a minor piece for a rook. In this situation, if I gave up my knight for my opponent's rook, that would be called winning an exchange. We call the difference between a minor piece and a rook an exchange, and that's not important necessarily, but you'll hear people talking. You'll hear people using that word a lot, so it's good to know what it means. But that's not important to your play at all. Okay, so our opening principles. Control the center with our pawns and our minor pieces. Develop our minor pieces, which means to move them off of their starting squares. Okay? When someone says you want to develop a piece, that means to move it. Get it off its starting square. For things other than the rook, get it off the back rank. Okay? Yeah. I assumed as much from, you said you'd taken some lessons. So. Control the center. Put pawns in the center. Develop your minor pieces, especially the ones on the king side. And castle. Okay? So that's going to be our goal in every opening. Control the center, develop your minor pieces, castle. And later on, another thing that we're going to want is to connect our rooks. And that means if I took all these pieces off the board, I'm going to say I castled because you can't take the king off the board. I would recommend not to castle queenside at a low level. It's fine to do, but castling kingside is a lot safer. So imagine that nothing was here except for the rooks. That would mean the rooks are connected when they can see each other. People pizza, indeed. Good. Good. I will say, though, Yuso, if you do ever castle queenside, in order to make it as safe as castling kingside, very important move with either color is put your king on these squares. King B1 and B8 is an important move. Sometime in a game where you have played long castle. Anyway, we don't do that here. This is a very common opening. And we're controlling the center, right? We got our pawns in the center, and we're developing pieces, okay? So I'm just gonna put pieces out here. This is a very common opening, right? And another thing, this is not an opening principle, but it's something to keep in mind. If black had played this move, it's a very good move. It supports your center. You got this pawn chain going. That's fantastic. The bishop can't go through that pawn, right? So if you want the bishop to get over here, in this area, you have to get the bishop out before you play this move, if you're going to play this move. But let's just go with this move, right? And we'll continue putting our minor pieces out. Look at us go. Everyone's got their minor pieces out. And you'll notice I can castle. So I'm going to do that. You really want to castle as soon as possible. So actually, before I brought this knight out, well, no, that's not true. Never mind. Ignore what I said. I want to castle as early as possible. Kingside, if possible. And yeah, we're just going to continue developing, right? We're going to move this pawn so we can get this bishop out. Future Mr. Sir here. Developing the remaining bishops to e3 and e6 here is a much more normal position, and one that demonstrates my points better. So let's pretend that's where they are. What we want to do next, okay? Once you've castled, very, very, very important move to make sure that you don't get backrank mated, which is pretend these three pieces aren't here and this piece isn't here. If black could just put their queen right here, white would be checkmated. That would be checkmate, right? That's called backrank mate, is when you have a queen or a rook on the back rank and the king has nowhere to go to get around it and no one can block, etc. That happens a lot in lower level games, and even in my games. So a very important move to avoid that is h3, or h6 from the black side. That is very important. Play that every single game. You do that a lot. Great. Unless you mean backrank mate, in which case, hopefully you're saying that you deliver backrank mate. The last thing I want to do for my development, that's two things I want to do. Connect the rooks, like I said. Okay. Now the rooks can see each other. And I also want to either put my rooks on open files or centralize them. Okay? Because we love controlling the center in early and middle game. So if I just put my rooks here, I'm happy. That's fine. That is completely fine, right? Okay, let me take 2 steps back. 1, the rows on the board are called ranks for reasons unknown to me. And they're numbered 1 through 8. And the columns are called files. And they are lettered A through H. Okay. So that's very good to know what people are talking about. Those are good words to know. Okay. So now when I say open file, that means the rook can see all the way to the other side of the board. There's no pawn in front of it, right? And if this pawn was not here, this would be an open file. It would actually be an open file both ways. But when there's a pawn of the opposite color, of your opponent's color on the file, we actually call it a half open file, right? Because a lot of the times the pawn can be like this, and the rook can't really go, so it's not really an open file. Call it a half open file. But it's still very good that a white pawn's not. Rooks love to be on open files. Yeah, Christmas lo-fi. Love to be on open files. But if there's no open files, we really like to control the center. So, okay. These are our goals in the opening, right? Control the center, put pawns in the center, develop your minor pieces, castle as soon as possible. Those are our goals, okay? We want to play h3 and h6. We want to connect our rooks, okay? And very long term, find a good file to put your rooks on. Okay. That's all. those are our goals in the opener.